Welcome back or welcome here if this is your first time. I'm going to start this one a little differently because it's a different kind of episode. It's a break from our normal anonymous format. This is a conversation with someone you know if you've been here for a while. Don Sires was one of the first people I ever interviewed for the podcast. A mutual friend introduced us, and we ended up sitting in a really loud, busy coffee shop talking about death for about 2 hours. That was the first time we met. I knew pretty quickly that this was someone I wanted to know. When we finally recorded episode 8, I had no idea what I was doing. The microphones were propped up on books, and I had my iPhone set up to record video that I never ended up using. I was working through this very formulaic list of questions, trying to figure out what this project even was. Don was gracious enough to not make me feel like an idiot about any of it. After that, we just kept talking. I'd go visit him every couple months, no agenda, no recordings, just conversations. He pushed me to explore things I wasn't sure I believed, not in a way that felt like he was telling me I was wrong, more like he genuinely wanted to see where my curiosity would take me if I let it. I can honestly say this podcast wouldn't be what it is today without him. About 2 weeks ago, he texted me. He told me his nurse had given him 4 to 6 weeks to live, and then he asked if I wanted to do a wrap-up interview. His words. Wrap-up interview. That's so very Don. But it still almost didn't happen. We had to reschedule once, and then the morning of the interview I was sitting there waiting anxiously. He hadn't been feeling well the night before, and when my phone rang about 15 minutes before I needed to leave, I assumed he was calling to cancel. Instead, he was calling to ask if it would be a problem for the audio because someone was coming to clean the house. And I'll just note here that you might hear some background noise, but I told him it didn't matter. We'd figure it out. I just really wanted to see him one more time. I'll be honest with you, I wanted this interview to happen for some selfish reasons too. I knew it would be something people needed to hear and wanted to hear, especially people who loved episode 8, which is a lot of people. But after we finished recording, Don looked at me and said he'd selfishly wanted to do it too, so he could leave something behind for his kids. And I think that's the thing. We both had our own reasons for making this happen, and that probably pushed us to actually make it happen. But underneath all of that, we're really just two people who like to have meaningful conversations. And even if the selfish part is what got us into the room, the rest of it, that was just us. If you haven't heard episode 8, please go there first. Get to know Don, then come back. Here's Don, one more time. I hope you enjoy. Anything else you need on your end?
No, I'm good.
This does feel a little bit different than last time where I
Yes.
was very panicked about, okay, how do I start this? How do I do this? And yeah, I'm glad that we're getting to do this. I'm going to just to be safe. You sound good to me, but I'm just boosting you up just a little bit more. Definitely let me know at any point you need a break or if we need to stop.
Okay.
I did take down some notes, but I'm going to keep it very casual. I didn't necessarily plan this, but on the drive here, I was thinking about it, and I thought maybe the best way to start this would be the text message that you sent me about a week ago.
Yeah.
And it says, I need to tell you the nurse is giving me 4 to 6 weeks to live. I thought maybe we could do a wrap-up interview if you like. Might be an interesting conclusion. And that's not a text that you get every day. I don't know if it's just me, but I found the wrap-up interview somewhat comical, and I feel like it feels very in line with how we talk. It might be a little crass on my end, but my first thought was, oh, this is your exit interview.
Yeah.
And
I thought about that. I thought this is a way to bring everything to a conclusion.
I think in that situation, though, that makes me like the HR department for Earth or something.
Yeah.
So I hope I don't mess this up, but I wanted to bring a little bit of that levity in here at the beginning because that's very much been a part of our conversations. I remember in our interview, we talked about how people come up to you and ask you the strangest things and with no filter. And someone walked up to you out of nowhere and asked, how does it feel to be dying?
Yeah.
And you and I have laughed about that a lot because all of us are dying. That is just the fact of life. That's how this whole thing works.
Yes.
And I loved the way that you phrased it, though, is that you just have a much better idea of when than most other people. And with that text that you sent me, I don't know, target or end date, whatever you want to call it, is much, much clearer. Some other things I want to say out of the gate before we really get into it. You were one of the first guests of the podcast way back when the format was much different. It's one of the most listened to episodes, and it is the episode that I get contacted about the most. And so I thought that's something that I wanted you to know, that it has been a very important episode for me, but also a very important episode for others. And I think that's something, I don't know if we've really ever discussed that, but I'm honored that you were willing to do that conversation then. And I'm really honored that you want to do this conversation.
Well, thank you. And I'm paying attention, but there's something that I'm hoping that we can read and that will help explain how I feel about all of this.
You're not. He's not doing Sudoku. I can promise you that. A couple of the things that I want to maybe mention before we get into this. It has been a long time since I've done an interview like this. The very first anonymous call that I did was almost exactly a year ago. So hopefully I don't mess this up. Again, I'm honored that you even wanted me to do this. And I think just for clarity's sake for the listeners, I think I'll probably, for the most part, when I say last time we spoke, we'll refer to the last interview. Although you and I have met up, I've come to see you probably every 2 to 3 months since then. So we've had many conversations, but I think to keep that clean, I'll probably say last time we spoke and in reference to the last interview. I think in general, there's kind of two directions that I see this conversation going. I think there will be talk about now, what's going on now, how you're feeling now, and then also looking back on your life. Last time was very much looking forward in a sense, in a podcast called When We Die Talks. Of course, we were talking about what happens next, what is that about? But this is a very special conversation, a very different conversation. And so I think this one I want to talk more about your experiences now and looking back, because I think that's kind of what's really important. Did you find what you wanted?
No, I'm going to look a little.
Okay.
Keep talking and I can respond.
We can also, it could be something that we read at the end, or do you feel like it?
No, it's somewhere in this journey of conversation. Go ahead.
Okay. It'll come up when it needs to come up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're ready to dive in, I think the best place to start with this is how you're doing right now, maybe giving some information about kind of the news. I mean, I kind of shared a little bit of it from your text, but you always had this really maybe peaceful outlook on death, it seemed to me. And so I'm curious how you're feeling now and what is your perspective on that?
That's a good place to start. First of all, for listeners, I'm an ALS patient. And that type of ALS I have is in my chest and my throat. And those patients normally have 2 to 3 years to live. And I'm at 2.5. And so this might be a little bit of a strange thing to say at TMI, but patients in my condition, ALS patients, have one of 3 ways to die. It's either by choking to death from water or food, and suffocating, and basically fighting it to the end, and then you die from one of those 2 anyway. So I have a very, very strict DNR, and what's also called plus, which means it's a kind of a beyond DNR. I will not take any interventions. My nurse even wants me to think of my water, and I refuse because I want to know that let my body speak to me when it's time. And so I feel that I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, as we've talked about. And Baha'i emphasizes the gift of life, but also emphasizes that the essence of us never dies. People call it the soul. People call it consciousness. It's by a different lot of different names. So my big dilemma has been never to squander my life, to throw it back at the gift giver, but also not to be afraid of dying. And to hold on to life greedily to the end. Well, about two and a half weeks ago, I woke up at 3 in the morning, and I'm just laying here in bed and thinking, and I realize, do not have faith in what the Baha'i faith says about life continuing on. Baha'u'llah, in one of his passages, even says, I have made death as a messenger of joy. Not that we should kill ourselves. What he's saying is that the next spiritual world, Christians and many other faiths call it the heaven, is a joyous, continual experience of serving and existing. The Baha'i writings have a lot to say. Anyway, what I'm saying is this. It gets to your question, how am I feeling now? I came at a real peaceful level of saying it's okay to just, as a matter of fact, I felt like I was showing my faith in God by saying it's okay to die. And so with that, I'm choosing to, because food and this drink is really a hazard to me now. Yeah. I choke a lot.
Yeah.
So basically, starting on Friday, and we're going to start abstaining from food and water. But I'm very much at peace with the dying. The other part, I say to my hospice nurse, this is the part that is going to take a level of determination that I have not experienced. So,
Yeah.
does that answer the? I'm at calm. I'm at peace.
Yeah, it does. It actually answers a couple questions I have because, I mean, I think that's why we've connected so well. Maybe not the only reason. I think there's a lot of reasons we have, but I have this fear and you have presented this peace in the face of this really difficult diagnosis. And not saying that you haven't had your moments, but, you know, when we're together, you know, it always is, you have peace in that. And one of the other questions that I was going to ask about is, I know Baha'i is this very strong foundation for you. And I know with some people towards the end, that foundation can get rocked. And it sounds like for you, it's become even more sturdy. It's become more foundational. That feels like redundant, but it sounds like you're finding peace in that and your beliefs and that you're trusting in the religion that you have followed for a long time.
It is true. In a strange way, this disease has turned into a gift in that it has caused me to think about not only Baha'i, but all the great religions. But the beauty of Baha'i is it opens up spirituality, connectedness with God, but it shows how all the great traditions can do that. It's kind of like there's a saying, a teaching in Baha'i that says, this is the changeless faith of God, eternal in the beginning and eternal in the end. And what that is saying is that take the Columbia River. I've been to the one of five places that it says this is the beginning.
Yeah, the source.
And it's up in Columbia. And I took a drink from that. Oh my gosh, it's the purest water. Well, take that as Christianity. And the being is sitting at the foot of Jesus face to face. Well, that's his pure source of God's word to man.
Yeah.
Well, as that water goes downstream, what happens? Another river points in, and that's a person saying, oh, I think it says this. And by the time it gets to the Columbia, take a drink of that water. It's
a little bit different.
Yeah. And it's not to say the purity is not there. It's just much harder to find
Yeah.
it. And so what Baha'i is, to me, is the same truths that were taught in all of them, minus the dogma, minus the superstitions, minus the rituals. But the beauty of it also is it says science and religion should agree.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways that, for me, consolidating, if you wish, confirming my belief. ALS is giving me lots of time to look at all these great traditions and go, they really are the same source.
Yeah.
And we're all going to the same place.
Yeah.
And I've thought a lot about nihilism, the actual belief that there's nothing meaningful in life and there's nothing after death. And it's interesting. That's a good question of how do we confirm that there is something. Well, to believe there is nothing is also a belief.
Yeah.
And the people that are advocating that, they've looked at all the parts of religion that they go, and it's parts of the ancient religions that are nonsense. And they're saying, oh, and the God that the ancient ones talk about is normally an anthropomorphic being. I know a guy that actually is of a religion that says, I can tell you his name and what planet he lives on. So, to me, this galaxy, not the galaxy, the known universe. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's elegant. It's a little big, about 93 billion light years across. Well, I look at that and I go, for me, it's got to have come from something somewhere.
Yeah.
So the idea that life is meaningless, well, you find meaning every day.
Yeah.
And you're a person.
It's a choice in some ways,
yeah.
right?
Oh, it is. It's a total choice. My friends that say they're nihilists, they do meaningful things every day, because even Nietzsche, he almost went mad, or I think he did, because he leaned so heavily into meaninglessness
Yeah.
that he went crazy.
Yeah.
We are creatures that must find meaning.
Yeah.
I think it's a spark inside of us.
I am curious because you mentioned it last time and you mentioned again here the gift of this that I think a lot of people would find that hard to believe,
Yeah.
right? And there's this gift that it has given you this time to really dive into these religions and your religion and find the beauty in it. When I started this journey, I thought it was all about conquering this fear. And I think even more recently, I've realized I'm trying to intellectualize
Yeah.
getting over the fear. And when I thought I was going to lose my dog last month, it was like all these emotions came up. And for a second, there was this feeling like, well, I've been doing all this work for 3 years. I've been talking about death all the time. How come I'm still upset about this? And it's like, well, you can't intellectualize it. And so I know I'm not conquering the fear. And I still think that's part of the journey in exploring and finding what I believe. And you have pushed me along the way. But I know that it's changed the way that I look at life and how I see the beauty in things. And I think one of the things like gratitude. And I think the first time I mentioned it was with you. We talked about it with that quote of how does it feel to be dying?
Yeah.
Like, I think every time I've come here, when I leave, it's not necessarily our goodbye, but we have said, you know, I could get hit by a car on the way home. There's no guarantees. And so there's this gratitude that has come from contemplating this. And the problem is it's all those kind of cliche lines. It's like, you know, grateful to wake up for another day. And it's like when you start tuning to that. And so I am curious for you, you know, what are some of the other gifts that have come from this? Because there are going to be tons of people that are going to be like, you're crazy. This is not a gift.
Yeah. And it's
a balance.
It is a balance. It's a gift to me I would never wish on in my worst enemy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there is a caveat with that.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, do you read music?
No, I don't.
Well,
but
music,
I've tried.
Yeah. Music is a language.
Yeah.
But if you hold the paper up, it's paper and ink.
Yeah.
It's meaningless. And even when I play guitar,
yeah, we're sitting in a room with a bunch behind me.
and I take a piece of music. And for those that understand it, I play a lot of fingerstyle, Chet Atkins, Tommy Emmanuel stuff. And I start practicing a piece. And my gosh, it's like pulling teeth. Music on paper is meaningless.
Yeah.
You can read it, and it's all in your head. But when they practice all at once, the piece you're playing magically becomes music. It's come off the paper into the instrument in you, and you become one with it. It's magic.
Yeah.
Then it's poetry. And the place of poetry and music is the heart and the soul. We can think and think and think, but there's always a but to any answer, any philosophy. And thus, the world is full of philosophers. But to be a great musician, to be a great poet, that's the world of history. And the great mystics of the world, Oregon, Master Eckhart, even St. Thomas Aquinas, Rumi, all of the Attar, all of these guys are transcend the world of intellect, and they get to a point in their journey of looking for God, looking for truth. Even St. Thomas Aquinas wrote his 5 volumes of proving God, and about a month or two before he died, he had a mystical experience, an encounter with God, if you wish, like for the Christian audience, where Paul on his road to Damascus experienced. And St. Thomas Aquinas then stopped writing and said, there's nothing more to say. Words cannot describe it. So it's one of those that not all of us can get the gift of the mystics.
Yeah.
But we can lean into the possibility that there is something. And I'm not referring to Pascal's dilemma. Most people have not read that, and simplistically argue that he said, well, if there's nothing in you, believe, well, you're not lost anything. But if there's something, you've gained it. Well, you can't do it like that. And that's not really what he's saying. Again, people that say that haven't read it, I would advise people to read it. But this is a level of most people there think there's nothing, have really not delved into the possibility of something. And once they start studying it from the tradition of Baha'i, the mystical possibilities, Eckhart, and I don't mean the modern, I mean it's French, is Monsieur or something, but it means Master Eckhart and all of these guys. You kind of lean into the thing is there has to be something in science. Most of the people that use science as a proof of non-creative force, they forget this. We know about 5% of the known universe. 95% is dark matter and energy, or somewhere around there. So there's a lot of unknowns. So I maybe have drifted from your question.
That's okay.
But it's the idea of I think that it's a hard one because when people contemplate the idea of a God, it's kind of a high faith even says God is an unknowable essence. So it's a hard one to contemplate.
Yeah.
But the more we think about it, the more elegant, beautiful the journey is. And it's really a journey. Truth is not a point, It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a path.
Yeah. I said that I felt like there was kind of two parts of this conversation. And you always hear about people at the end having these regrets. There's like the 5 regrets that people have.
What are they?
Let me see if I wrote them down. Working too much, not saying what they felt, which is one thing that you brought up in our last talk, was that if someone needs to say something to you, say it.
Yeah.
Living for other people. I think that's only 4. I don't think I wrote them all down. But just in general, I'm not expecting you to like give me regrets, but I am curious, as you look back on your life, what really mattered? What kind of comes to you from there?
Oh, it's funny. Yes, I've been thinking about that. Time is, of course, the one thing you use up every day. And in that, this world we live in demands we work. And it's okay to have things. As the guitars I have, they're beautiful. I've got books and books and books. I've got a lot of things. I'm a rich man, if you wish, by other world standards, but I'm modest middle income by American. But everything I own will be owned by somebody else eventually.
Yeah.
So what I've been blessed in is this. Even at the end, there have been a steady stream of people come through the house. Wonderful people. My children, my wife, oh my God, she is a saint.
I can attest to that. Yeah.
I teased with her the other day saying, everything I've accomplished has been because of her. And I've said in here at the end, you can't even get mad at me. Because who can get mad at a dying man? But I
She's like, you can only use that so much.
Yeah. But I said to her after 46 years of marriage, she does have a look that says, do that again and you meet God today. So what is most valuable is my faith, my family, and my friends. Nothing else I can take with me.
Yeah.
I think that all of them I take in my heart, mind, and soul. And I've had and they, even the difficult people I've met, there's a verse from the Bible I can simplify, in that it's easy to love the lovable.
Yeah.
Well, the people that are not lovable are really from my eye. And they may be better people.
Yeah.
So, people. Because everything else, the pharaohs, the kings, the queens, the richest people, Elon Musk, they will all end up in the ground.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
going to end up in the same
Yeah.
place, no matter how hard people try not to.
Yeah. And the things I regret, well, you look back and you go, how could I have been so stupid? But everything we have that we can see by that, well, if we can see our stupidity, it means we learn from it.
Yeah.
Everything in life is a learning thing. Even our mistakes, our hardest ones, when we realize we hurt somebody. And if we can apologize, do it. But so,
What about, I think it's along the same lines, but what do you wish more people understood? You have this perspective at end of life with this project. For me, it's woken me up to a lot, just contemplating death as much as I have now. The gratitude and not worrying about how people think of me, and all these things have come from that. And there's no recipe, right? But
yeah.
if you just contemplated, if you didn't run from it, it would change your life. And so what are the things that you wish that you could just like shake some people and say, hey, like, and I think some of it you pointed to, at the end of the day, you have this stuff and it's been very important. I mean, you bring up the guitars, but you actively played the guitars. And I know you're a reader, scholarly, like you've read the books, and you know that they'll all end up with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's something that there's things, and we say they're important, we think they're important, but eventually they'll go somewhere else. And maybe if it's even you to me, like, is there anything that you're like, wake up, it goes so fast, and it's probably more of the cliche stuff that we hear, but
It's, I think, the big picture stuff. Accept the fact that people are different
yeah,
and that we're all the same race, all the same. It really, science has proven there's one race, the human race. We just come in all these different colors and sizes and shapes.
yeah,
Culture is difficult. I lived in an island in the Pacific for 2 years. I was lost in their culture. And in their culture, they had different things that way men and women should act and so on. So that's the beauty of the world. And I'm not saying there's not things that people do that are wrong, because anytime you hating somebody else. But so with that, on a personal level, enjoy just people. It's hard not to have people hit a button, but as soon as they hit the button, you have to realize they've hit it. They've found your weak spot.
yeah,
And
there's something to be learned there.
yeah, and there's a lot to be learned, because if you're thinking, I have a couple of friends, I'd always say everybody's an idiot. Well, what they're saying is the world should behave like them.
Yeah,
Well, that would make the world very boring if everybody was like me.
yeah,
And also, just these common little things. And, but life and time, and they're precious. And so a person has to find adventure in their own way. But the greatest adventure really is learning and self-discovery. And to not be afraid when you're around other people. All of us have a certain level of social anxieties,
yeah,
but realize that most likely everybody in the room is having that. And those that are not having them, well, maybe they think they're better than everybody in the room, which is not a good thing. I have a friend who many times has said to me, when Avery entered the room, he knew he was the smartest. And I've thought, how sad, because you didn't learn from anybody in
Yeah.
that room.
yeah.
So the whole thing, I think, can be summarized to me in this. There is a verse from Baha'u'llah that says, possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. I heard a TED talk recently where she's kind of put it in this language: be authentic, be nice to each other, and be happy. Nobody wants to hang around with somebody who is always dark and gloomy.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hang around with people that are making them feel bad about themselves. And we can all see somebody that is so confused about themselves that they have a hard time being genuine. And the hard part is realizing what that might be. But that's a long topic.
Maybe for another time.
Yeah, definitely for another time.
You mentioned your amazing wife, Donna,
Yeah.
as this person that has had a huge impact on your life. Who are the other people that you look back on that,
Oh,
I mean, I'm sure there's many.
I can name three right offhand. When I was a teenager, I was telling my family this morning. I grew up in a rough neighborhood
Where at?
in Waterloo, Iowa. Now people are going to go, where the heck is that? But it was on three sides were factories, steel mills and so on. Behind us was woods. But looking straight out my door to the right was working class, blue collar, lower income. And to the left was really poor. Well, we kids would go to the poor side, but my house was a safe house. The boys in my neighborhood loved my dad because he was a ex-boxer. You've heard the phrase, my dad can beat up yours.
Yours could.
I lived that. But so the boys loved him. And you could see their background of suffering. I'll give you an example of one of the families. It was, I won't name their name, but the year before I moved in, their brother drowned in the river. Oh, there were 8 kids. And then the father committed suicide in the garage. While we were living there, the oldest boy stabbed to death the mother's boyfriend in the kitchen, and so on. And that was just one of many kids. And so when I grew up, I was around them. But my family had become Baha'i when I was 4 years old. But, kids are kids, and you play with who you want. And my family embraced those kids, but they were the kids, of the group 7 went to prison in later life, from armed robbery to murder. Now, as children, they were not bad children. They were just lost.
Mm.
One, when I was 13 or 14, I started being introduced to Baha'i teenagers. Now, they were not, how would I say, all people are flawed. They were just flawed in different ways. They were trying to make something of their life. And these poor kids that they grew up with, they didn't have the opportunity. So I'm looking at the kids in the neighborhood, and I'm looking at these other kids, and I thought, I want to be like the Pi kids, but I didn't know how. So that was kind of my transition. So it was a learning process. Everything's a learning process. So does it get close to your question?
Yeah. I think one of the words that I hate most along this topic is legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mostly because what I see around it is kind of the Western definition of it seems to me permanent. How do I remain permanent? And I think we see that in the world with how do I build an empire that'll last forever?
Yeah,
But you and I both know, I mean, everybody knows that nothing lasts forever.
yeah.
Everything is impermanent. And so I kind of asked this with the thought of, I need to find another word besides legacy. But how do you hope that you're remembered? You know, what do you, for lack of a better word, what do you see your legacy being?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I thought about that. I know that as a carpenter, I love building things that would outlive me. I signed every one of my remodels and hit it. I mostly would put hidden rooms or compartments in the things. Few people get more than a obituary in life,
Yeah.
but the people they leave behind, if you try to love and be honest, you can leave people with the desire to live. Coming back to the who influenced me the most, my parents, a guy by the name of Moses Edwards. He was this man from Louisiana, and I met him at 17, and he was a light in my life, and he's now dead. But me and many of his kids that are around him are his legacy, because he guided every one of us. A man by the name of Jay Chapman, who grew up in the south side of Chicago, was a white man. He hung out in black gangs. He was a really rough kid, but had this epiphany one day and looked at himself and his friends and went, we're just animals. He was the most wise man, educated man, self-educated. And he took me under his wing, and he was the kindest man. and have from 19 on. He was my spiritual brother and many other people. But legacy is not in things of material wealth.
Yeah.
How did you change, or not even change? How did you treat people to where they felt better about themselves? So,
That was a great way to answer both questions. And I think it leads me into the next part really well, because I want to be a little selfish here, if that's okay. You have been a teacher to me. You have pushed me in this project. You have sent me multiple podcasts to listen to. You've given me books to read. Or I don't know if you mentioned, but I think maybe I can put the pieces together. I came into this as quote unquote nothing believer. And I still feel like that's predominantly what I believe, but you have pushed me to explore other ideas. And so I know that you have impacted my life tremendously. And if that's a legacy, then yeah, I think that's a wonderful legacy. And I will try to carry that on, and I will try to continue to explore and journey. Like, I'm not giving up on this. But again, selfishly, or I guess maybe one thing that I should say before that is, and this is really between you and I, because I'm not going to tell anybody else about it, but the last time I was here, not in our interview, but when you and I were together, you gave me an assignment to go do something this summer, and you told me that you wouldn't be here. And I think that was the first time that I was really aware of. It's not like that I didn't know. The first time we did the first interview, you said I had a year left. And I think it's just, we have this way of thinking, oh yeah, there's always more time. There's always more time. And you gave me this assignment, this task, and I'm very excited to do it. But you had mentioned it with, I won't be here anymore. And all of that to say, like, I don't know, I'm just very appreciative of all the things that you have pushed me to do and explore. And so my selfish question is, what do you hope for me? Me as a person, and maybe also for the project, because you are a huge part of this project. You were one of the very first interviews, but behind the scenes, you were pushing me to, like I said, read and explore and learn. And you would send me things like, I think you should try to find someone who would talk about this. And there are people that I'm still trying to find, easier said than done sometimes on this topic. But I am curious, what do you hope for me in the project? And again, that's two separate things.
No, it's a great question. I think about the idea of feeling there's nothing past this life. That's a scary thing. I've tried to contemplate it as deeply as I think it can be. And the idea of nothingness creates a huge thing of, why am I doing anything? Now, I'm not saying that people who think that way are meaningless people who do not have a moral conscience. My gosh, some of them are incredibly moral and serving and everything. But I think that part of it is the idea of Eric Frankel's book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a great little read. And meaning, in some ways, is so vital to ourselves. Now, for you, since your fear of death has led you to this journey, fear is a healthy thing. We don't kick sleeping dogs. We don't jump off a cliff without a parachute. Some fears are healthy. But the idea of being afraid of that, I think it can be healthy, like you've done with it, because I would say I don't know if you're truly into the nothingness anymore because you started the exploration of what might be. And with that is, there's a book by Baha'i called The Seven Valleys. And it's also Rumi wrote something similar called The Seven Valleys. And it's kind of a Sufi question. And when Baha'u'llah wrote the book, he was addressing a Sufi mystic. And so the seven valleys, the first valley is the Valley of Search by Baha'u'llah. And that's where you are. And he says, if you take 1,000 lifetimes, stay in the search. And you're doing that. And I hugely respect that, and I'm happy. Continue to search. Even the beautiful part of this journey is that for every question you have find answered, you should find 5 more.
It's never ending.
Yeah, and that's the elegance and beauty of it. But the more you're into the journey, the next phase of that is the Valley of Love, because it's you found what you're looking for. Anyway, I'll give you a copy.
Another assignment.
Yeah, and the thing to me that is sad is the people who have decided they're nothing, that there is nothing. Well, to me, that's as dogmatic as the certain face saying, I have found that something, and it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
The ones that say, you have to believe like I believe. Well, that's as dogmatic as insisting there's nothing.
Yeah.
So you've entered that search. So I would just say, I can respect that. I can love that. It's not that I don't have compassion for those that say there's nothing. But often they are people who I think they more want to say there's nothing. Because if there's a God and what they think is a heaven, well, then it throws them into the dilemma of this. But if there's a God, what religion is right? Well, there being a God doesn't prove any religion. So that again is another long topic. So for you, you've started with what I'm happy about. And I would say, don't let anybody persuade you off your journey. If it takes all of your life. It's kind of a fun one anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some days that are frustrating, but,
yeah.
but I've had some really, really beautiful, maybe revelations, especially over this past year,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have come without kind of this self-exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think before we kind of wrap this up, you sent that text and very much said that you wanted to do this. You know, this isn't something that we had discussed. I'm so glad that you did. I'm so glad that we got to do this one more time. And I think people are going to be very excited to hear from you again. But because you prompted this, or you, I don't know, kicked this off, before we wrap up, I just want to make sure I give you maybe some space if there is anything else that you want to say that we didn't cover.
Oh, thank you. I've been thinking the question, has anything changed for me in the initial interview to now? First of all, I want to say back to that, to the never-ending process of search. That is never to say that my own journey is always a pathway of certainty. Oh my gosh, I bounce around it going, challenging myself. I think it is Paul in the Bible, I think is Corinthians. He talks about his dying daily. And death to me in the Bible is the idea of falling out of faith, questioning your faith. And it's healthy to question. I think it's one that I'm glad we talked again. I got a poem by Rumi.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna read. And it's one that kind of sums up this journey.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it's Rumi, for those that don't know, was a Persian mystic. And he lived in the 12th, 13th century. So here's the poem. So you can read where it starts. I died.
Hopefully I don't mess this up. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I was man. Why should I fear when I was less by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God doth perish. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become what no mind ever conceived. Oh, let me not exist, for non-existence proclaims in organ tones, to him we shall return.
It really says that life, both in the human being, has this thing we call soul or eternal mind, and it lives forever. It has a starting point, but it's eternal.
Yeah.
So, thank you for taking time to come here today.
Yeah. I do have one last thing that I'll say.
Yeah.
The last time you mentioned a friend of yours who said the nicest thing to you. And it's something that men very rarely say to each other. And I don't want to copy them, but I do want to say I do love you. And I am deeply grateful and thankful that you met up with me at that coffee shop when I don't even think I had an episode of the podcast out yet. I think we sat and talked for 2 hours that day and then planned the interview and have met up, like I said, every couple of months. I am so deeply grateful for our friendship. I did not expect that from this project. I did not expect to meet someone like you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, I do absolutely love you.
Well, thank you. Any relationship like this goes two ways. We both affect each other. And I can say I have a love for you as well. And you have made me think in ways that are good. So thank you.
Yeah.
and continue this podcast.
I will. I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay,
That was great.
wow.
After we wrapped up, Don had his wife searching for a specific book he wanted me to take home. It was a collection that had the Seven Valleys in it, something he'd mentioned during our conversation. But he had multiple copies and he wanted me to have a particular one. And then he mentioned a video he wanted me to watch. And then he was back to the book and said he had someone I should talk to once I read it. So even at the end, even right at the end, Don was still Don. Still pushing, still curious, still pointing me somewhere new. Don told me he knew we'd see each other again in the next life, and I want to be honest, that's pretty counter to what I've believed up to this point. But in that moment, it didn't feel like something I needed to push back on or think too hard about. And not to protect his feelings, but because it just felt true. I said I thought we would too, and I meant it. I still can't fully explain that feeling because it wasn't like some big life-changing moment where everything shifted. It just felt like, deep down, somehow I knew. And I'm okay not knowing how to explain it to you. I'm okay just holding on to it, whatever it was. When I finally got up to leave, it was hard in a way I haven't really experienced before. I've lost people. I still remember the last real conversation I had with my grandpa. I just didn't know at the time that it was the last one. Knowing you're saying goodbye and that it's actually goodbye is something different. Even now, as I write this hours after leaving, I think I've barely begun to grasp what that actually means. I guess that's what I want to leave you with. Not a conclusion, just the same thing he kept handing me every time I walked out of that house. The encouragement to keep going, keep searching, and to stay curious.